This is a 2-mark question asked in GATE 2021 of electronics. This is from signal subjects and from continuous time Fourier series topic. The given question is the exponential Fourier series representation of a continuous time periodic signal x of t is given, where omega naught is fundamental angular frequency of x of t and the coefficient of series are ak. The following information is given about x of t and ak. The informations are: x of t is real and even, having fundamental period of 6. The average value of x of t is 2, and the coefficient a of k is k for k between 1 to 3 and 0 for k greater than 3. The average power of x of t rounded up to 1 decimal place is dash. Okay. So this is the question given. So x of t, its exponential Fourier series representation is specified, where this x of t is real and even, and its fundamental period is 6. Average value of x of t is 2, and the coefficient ak, they are given some informations, and we are supposed to find average power of x of t. So if you want to get the average power of x of t, and that to be the question is framed from the CTFS topic, then naturally this question is application of a popular theorem known as Parseval's theorems. Why Parseval theorem is useful, or in what case we need Parseval theorems? Without knowing the time domain signal x of t completely or x of n completely, if you want to get the energy and power of the signal from the Fourier spectrum, you need Parseval's. So based on the Parseval's theorems, the average power is given by magnitude of a naught square plus summation 2 into summation n equals to 1 to infinity, and this is magnitude of ak square. Or in simple language, this is simply summation of n from minus infinite to, okay, this is a n, you can think, n equals to minus infinite to plus infinite, and this is mod of a n whole square. So both of the formula are equivalents. So we have to use this formula. Now the point is, if x of t is real and even, so from this, what information they are trying to tell us? If x of t is real and even, it means your ak is real and even. So based on the symmetric property, if the time domain signal is real and even, the corresponding spectrum will also be real and even. We'll see what is the implication of this. We'll see. Average value of x of t is 2. It means your a naught is equals to 2. If you see, average value means this is nothing but the DC values. So this a naught value is given 2, and then they are telling ak is equals to k between k equals to 1 to 3. If I say this is the k axis, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 0, 0, 1, 2, 3. If I try to plot the spectrums, so at k equals to 1, so you can see here, ak equals to k between k from 1 to 3. If I say a1 is equals to 1, so a1 is equals to 1, right? Then if I ask what is a2 is equals to 2. This is 2. If I ask you what is a3 is equals to 3. And beyond this everything is 0, because for k greater than 3 it is 0. So beyond that I don't have to go. And what is a of 0? A of 0 is given, which is 2, right? So we got it is 2. So this is what we are getting. But the point is, so if x of t is real and even, the ak is also real and even. So it is given that this spectrum a of k, this is real and even, okay, with respect to origin only. So based on this, so we can also extend the spectrum till minus 3. At 3, if it is 3, at minus 3 also it will be 3. So at minus 3 also it will be 3. Then at minus 2, here, this will be, again it will be 2. And at minus 1, so this will be, again this will be 1. So this is what is the complete picture of a of k you will get. So we are able to extend this because it is given that real and even. So you got this, right? And we need the total power. So what we can do in this case is, so if you see this, we can take the value of n from minus 3 to 3, because that's the range where the spectrum is existing, minus 3 to 3, and this is mod of a n whole square, or you can take mod of ak whole square, doesn't matter. In this case k notation is used, so let us go with k notations. We can also go with n notation, no problems. So k from minus 3 to 3 this. So if you see this, it is a of minus 3 mod square, a of minus 2 mod square, a of minus 1 mod square, a naught mod square, plus a1 mod square, plus a2 mod square, plus A3 mod square. So simply you have to take the magnitude and square the corresponding amplitudes, and you have to add it. So there is no point of mod in this case because all numbers or value at all this value of k are real and positive. So mod function will really doesn't play any role in this case. So a of minus 3 is 3. So 3 square is 9. A of minus 2 is 2. 2 square is 4. A of minus 1 is 1. So 1 square is 1. A naught is 2. 2 square is 4. Then A1, 1 square is 1. Then A2, 2 square is 4. And A3, 3 square is 9. If you add all of them, 9 plus 4, 13, 14, 18, 19 and 23 plus 9, 32. So 32 is the right answer. Right? So the average power is 32. So this is also kind of a straightforward question, but instead of giving the spectrum directly, the information needed to calculate the power are given indirectly. So by using them, the answer what you're getting is 32. So 32 is the right answer for this problem. This is one more question asked in GATE 2021 of electronics. This is from signal subjects and from sampling topic. The given question is, consider a real valued baseband signal x of t band limited to 10 kHz. The Nyquist rate for the signal y of t equals to x of t into x of 1 plus t by 2 is. The options are 15 kHz, 13 kHz, 60 kHz and 20 kHz. So basically x of t is a baseband signal and is band limited to 10 kHz. We are supposed to comment the Nyquist rate of yt. Okay. So x of t is band limited to 10 kHz. So from this we can have the rough sketch of its corresponding spectrum. So if this is x of t, this is x of f. I am taking this is f axis and this in kilohertz. Because the informations are given in f notations, not in omega, and that too frequency are in kilo. So I am just taking this axis in the kilo units, kilohertz units. And it is band limited to 10 kilohertz. It means so the range of the spectrum is minus 10 to plus 10 or minus 10 kilohertz to plus 10 kilohertz. So the point is, Nyquist rate of any signal y, is given by 2 into maximum frequency of the corresponding signal. So I am writing this is 2 into fm of y, where fm of y is nothing but the maximum frequency of signal yt. So basically you have to find this fm of y and just multiply 2, that will be your final answers. So the point is, if x of t, if its spectrum is given x of f, then the time scaling property x of at having spectrum 1 by mod a x of f by a, isn't it? Now if I am replacing the a by like half, so if I am finding the spectrum of x of t by 2, so this will be given by 2 into x of 2f. Hope this is clear. So in this I am just substituting a equals to half, that is x of t by 2. Then if I am putting here a equals to half, this is 2 into x of 2f. But the point is, the next signal what I need is x of 1 plus t by 2. So x of 1 plus t by 2, so you can see we can write this as something like this. So this is equivalent to x of t plus 2 divided by 2, right? If you split it, it is x of t by 2 plus 2 by 2. So it is x of 1 plus t by 2. So having x of 1 plus t by 2 is also equivalent to x of t plus 2 whole divided by 2. So why am I writing like this? Because I need this signal, right? So if I have x of t by 2, then how do I reach into this signal? If you compare this and this, just the t is replaced by t plus 2. So if you replace the t by t plus 2, how does this will look like? T plus 2 by 2. If you do this, then by time shifting property, what is the time shifting property? X of t x of f, then x of t plus t naught will have the Fourier transform x of f into e raised to power j 2 pi f t naught. Isn't it? So if you make the t naught equals to 2 with respect to this, so this will be existing spectrum is 2 into x of 2f. Now in the existing spectrum we are just multiplying these additional factors. So this is e raised to power j 2 pi f and the t naught value is 2. So into 2 means you can write this is 4 pi f. Okay. Now the next point is, if I say the maximum frequency of this is fm of 1 and the maximum frequency of this will be fm of 2, okay, then what is the resultant maximum frequency of the multiplied signal? So that will be given by fm1 plus fm2. Why is it Why is it? So because, in the time domain, if the signals are multiplied, in frequency domain, they will be definitely convolved. And the property of convolution is the upper limit of the convolved signal is sum of the upper limit of the individual signal being convolved. Similarly, lower limit also. So if the upper limit of this signal is FM1, upper limit is FM2, and if we are convolving the corresponding spectrum in frequency domain, so obviously the upper limit of the convolved signal will be sum of their maximum frequencies. So if you know FM1 and FM2, simply add it, that will be maximum frequency of it. So this is what nothing but my FM of Y I am telling, right? Okay. So as per my notations, FM of 1 is nothing but equals to 10 kilohertz, right? Now what is this FM of 2? Now what is this FM of 2 means? So if this is X of F, if I ask you to plot how does this X of 2F will look like, then if you are scaling in the frequency domain, so it will be looking like this. It is minus 5 to 5, and for understanding purpose, if you take this is 1, because we have multiplying factor 2, so this will be still 2. But because of these 2F factors, so instead of from minus 10 to 10, so it will be from minus 5 to 5. So this is the spectrum of 2 into X of 2F. So where the upper limit is 5. So but we are not interested to deal with this signal, rather we are interested to deal with this signal. Now if you compare this and this, so what you can see is, so in the frequency domain, so along with this we have additional factor e raised to power j4 pi, e raised to power j4 pi f. But you know very well, so if you are multiplying any complex exponential, so this is no way going to change the range or the limit of the frequencies. If you are plotting this phase spectrum, it will contribute some things, but in this case, if the maximum frequency of this signal is 5, I mean to say the maximum frequency of this signal will be still 5. In other words, if you are multiplying a exponential factors in the existing signal, it is no way going to change the upper limit of the signals. So if this frequency, maximum frequency is 5, this will also be 5. So FM1 is 10 and FM2 is your 5, then the summation of this is 10 plus 5, which is 15. So your FM of Y is nothing but 15 kilohertz. If this is 15 kilohertz, then the Nyquist rate of Yt is 2 into 15 kilohertz. So that will become 30 kilohertz. That becomes 30 kilohertz, and that's the final answers. So in the questions we are supposed to find the Nyquist rate of Yt, and the final answer is 30 kilohertz. So because I'm explaining you, in each step by step, so I have taken around 5-6 minutes of time. But if you solve in the proper flow, so this question is not more than 30 to 40 second job. Once again I am summarizing. The signal X of t, its frequency was given 10, and then by using the scaling property you obtain this maximum frequency of this signal. You know the individual maximum frequency, and in time domain they are multiplied, means frequency domain they will be convolved, and in convolution we have to add the corresponding maximum frequency of the individual signal to get the maximum frequency of the convolved signal. So that's why I am adding this 10 and 5 to get the maximum frequency of this multiplied signal, which is coming as 15 kilohertz. If this is the maximum frequency of Yt, then the Nyquist rate of Yt is 2 into 15, so that becomes 30 kilohertz. So the sampling frequency of Yt is 30 kilohertz. That's the final answers. This is a 2-mark question asked in GATE 2021 of electronics. This is from signal subjects and from LTE system topic. The given question is, for a unit step input u of n, a discrete time LTE system produces an output signal which is 2 del n plus 1 plus delta n plus del n minus 1. Let yn be the output of the system for an input half power n un. The value of y of 0 is dash. So basically for a discrete time LTE system, okay, when the input is unit step, the output is given 2 del n plus 1 plus delta n plus del n minus 1. Then if the input is changed to half power n un and the output is y of n, then what is the value of y of 0? That is, what is y of n at n equals to 0? So you know very well, for any discrete time LTE system, if the input is any arbitrary input x of n, and if you know the impulse response h of n, then the output y of n is always given by convolution of input signal with its impulse response. So basically I have to find y of n for these inputs. So x of n is known to me. Now to get y of n I need to have h of n. What is h of n? H of n is the unit impulse response. But in the problem the step response is given. So this information which is given, so this is nothing but the step response, because this is the output for a step input, which is step response. So s of n is given. So if you know s of n, the impulse response h of n is given as s of n minus s of n minus 1. So in the continuous time case, h of t is equals to dst by dt. In the discrete time case, h of n is s of n minus s of n minus 1. So first let us find h of n, because to evaluate the answer I need h of n. So s of n is 2 delta of n plus 1 plus delta of n plus delta of n minus 1, then minus of s of n minus 1. So wherever n is there, you replace n by n minus 1. So this is 2, this is delta of, if I am replacing this n with n minus 1, so it is n minus 1 plus 1, okay, you can write like this, and then this is, okay, so this is minus of delta of n minus 1, that is delta of n minus 1 minus 1. So this is your s of n minus of s of n minus 1. In every terms, I am replacing the n with n minus 1. So this n is replaced by n minus 1, this n is replaced by n minus 1, this n is replaced by n minus 1. So basically, so this is 2 delta of n plus 1 plus delta of n plus delta of n minus 1 minus of, you can see minus 1 plus 1 cancel, it is 2 delta n, then minus delta of n minus 1 and minus delta of n minus 2. Right? So we can further simplify this, which is 2 delta of n plus 1, so this term is over. Then delta n minus 2 delta n, so this is minus of delta n, so this and this also over. Then this is plus and minus, so this and this are cancelled, and then finally I have this minus of delta of n minus 2. So what is it? This is your h of n. This is your h of n. And one more property will be helpful for us in this case. I think you know this. Any signal x of n convolved with delta of n minus n naught is given by x of n minus n naught. Any signal convolved with impulse signal becomes same signal, and by shifting property you can tell x of n convolved with delta of n minus n naught is given by x of n minus n naught. So now in this problem we know the impulse response and we know the inputs, then we have to find the outputs. So your y of n is x of n convolution with h of n, so that is half power n into u of n. This is your x of n should be convolved with h of n, which is 2 delta of n plus 1 minus delta of n minus delta of n minus 2. Now we can split this something like this: 2 into half power n u of n convolution with delta of n plus 1 minus of half power n u of n convolution with delta of n minus of half power n u of n convolution with delta of n minus 2. So now if we find it out, this is 2, and you can see based on this property x of n convolve delta of n minus n naught is x of n minus n naught. So now if you convolve like this, this will be half to the power n plus 1 into u of n plus 1. If this could have been only delta n, you would have got this signal as it is. So because it is n plus 1, wherever n is there I am replacing with n plus 1. So it is something like this. If I are convolving delta of n minus n naught, wherever n is there replace it by n minus n naught. So wherever n is there I am replacing it by n plus 1. Then minus this is half power n, and this is u of n, because n naught value is 0. If you make n naught equal to 0, xn convolve delta n become x of n. So this is x of n convolve delta n is x of n, and minus half to the power n minus 2 into u of n minus 2 into u of n minus 2. So this is what your y of n is. This is the complete expression of y of n. But in the questions we are not supposed to find y of n, we are supposed to find what is y of 0. So if I am replacing this n equals to 0, so this is 2 into half to the power 0 plus 1 is 1 into u of 1, right? I am replacing n equal to 0, half power 1 into u of 1 minus half power 0 into u of 0, then minus half power minus 2 into u of minus 2, right? So this is what is the final answer should be. But you know very well, u of n equals to 1 for n greater than equal to 0, and this is 0 for n less than 0. So if I ask you what is u of minus 2, so that is obviously 0, and 0 into something is 0, so this term becomes 0. And if you simplify this, so 2 into half, this is 1, and u of 1 is also 1. So this is 1 into 1, minus half power 0 is 1, and u of 0 is also 1. And this is anyway 0. So final answer is 1 minus 1 minus 0, and the answer what you're getting is 0. So this is the answer. You can solve this problem by jet transform approach. You can solve this problem by graphical convolution approach. You can solve this problem by DTFT approach. So there can be n number of ways, but this is one of the systematic approach. So even if I have taken around 5-6 minutes of time to explain this, but if you solve this in proper flow, some of the calculation you can do in your mind itself, and you can get the answer within 2 to 3 minutes. So the answer of this question is 0. This is a 2-mark question asked in GATE 2021 of electronics. This is from signal subjects and from DTFT topic. Okay. So if you see the question statement, what is being given is there are two signals, namely x of n and y of n, and x of e raised to power j omega and y of e raised to power j omega indicates the DTFT of x of n, y of n. Okay, with this informations, we are asked to evaluate this particular integral, right? That is what is being given in questions, and we have to evaluate this integral. So this product x of e raised to power j omega and y of e raised to power minus j omega. So let us take this to be any other functions, let's say p e raised to power j omega. Okay, or you can also continue like this. There are multiple approaches to solve this problem, but I'm going through this way. So this means this integral is equivalent to 1 by 2 pi integrations of 0 to t pi p e raised to power j omega and d omega. Okay, one more thing that you must be knowing this. Suppose p of n indicates the corresponding time domain signal of this p raised to power j omega. So if you refer the standard integral of DTFT, p of n is given by 1 by 2 pi. So this is 0 to 2 pi. This is p e raised to power j omega, and then you have e raised to power j omega and d omega. So this you can take from minus pi to pi. You can take any 2 pi interval because this spectrum is periodic in nature. But because here given 0 to pi, I am also taking it 0 to 2 pi, right? So this is the standard integral. Now if you make comparison of this and this one, what do you feel? What do you feel if you compare this and this? In other words, I am asking you, what should I do in this particular integral so that this integral will look like this? Now the only difference is this e raised to power j omega n is not present in this. Or in other words, if I am making n equal to 0, then this integral will be equivalent to this integral. I hope you clear, right? This is the standard one, and in this integral, if I am making n equal to 0, then this will be, this right hand side will be exactly equivalent to this. Okay, that means in this one I can say if n equals to 0, if n equal to 0 in this integration, then what I can say is 1 by 2 pi integration of 0 to 2 pi p e raised to power j omega d omega is equals to p of 0, right? In this I am substituting n equal to 0 both end. So that is what we are expecting. So we so you can see this and this are equivalent, and this is equivalent to p of 0. So basically what I am supposed to find is, if you see overally, I have to find what is p of n evaluated at n equal to 0. Evaluated at n equal to 0. Let's see how do you solve this particular problem. P into e raised to power p of e raised to power j omega is given as x of e raised to power j omega into y of e raised to power minus j omega, right? So what is the corresponding time domain equation if I ask you? P of n will be equivalent to x of n convolved with y of minus n, right? How I am saying this? Because if x of n having DTFT x of e raised to power j omega, y of n will have DTFT y of e raised to power j omega. Y of minus n will have DTFT by reversal property y of e raised to power minus j omega, right? And you know the convolution property, if you are doing convolution in time domain, let's say if I am doing x of n convolution with y of n, in the frequency domain, their corresponding spectrum will multiply. If I am doing convolution of this and this, in frequency domain, their corresponding spectrum will multiply. So the dtft of convolution of x of and y of minus n, if I ask you, then this will be equivalent to x e raised to power j omega multiplied by y of e raised to power minus of j omega, right? So that's why whenever I have this x of e raised to power j omega multiplied by y of e raised to power minus j omega, so this product I am replacing it by x of n convolution with y of minus n, right? X of n convolution with y of minus n. And again for the simplicity, so let y of minus n is equals to g of n. Let y of minus n is equal to g of n. So that means then p of n is equals to x of n convolution with g of n. So this will be given by summation k equals to minus infinite to plus infinite x of k g of n minus k. I hope you remember the standard time domain convolution summation formula, right? So it is summation of with respect to k from minus infinite to infinite x of k into g of n minus k. So we have the x of n functions, y of n functions. Let us substitute these things in this particular summations, and then we'll substitute n equal to 0 because this is equivalent to p of n equal to 0, and then we'll see how do we come to the conclusions. Now the first thing is, so we have this x of n, so we can use this x of k. If I ask you what is this x of k, so what it will be, just you have to replace the n with k. So it is 2 raised to power k minus 1, and it is u of minus k plus 2. So this is what your g of k. Now let us first get what is g of n. It will be easier for us to write what is g of n minus k. So what is g of n? We are telling that g of n is nothing but y of minus n, right? G of n nothing but y of minus n. So we have y of n, right? So we can get y of minus n. How? Because replacing n with minus n will give me y of minus n. If this is what y of n is, if I ask you what is y of minus n, wherever you are finding n, you replace it by minus n. So this will be equivalent to 2 raised to power n plus 2, okay? Then u of, if I am replacing this n with minus n, so this will be minus n plus 1, okay? 2 raised to power n plus 2 whole multiplied by u of minus n plus 1. So this is what your g of n. Now let us find g of n minus k. So if we have g of n, right, in terms of n, if I ask you what is g of n minus k, then what to do in this case? Wherever you have n, you have to replace it by n minus k. So it will be n minus k plus 2. This is u of minus of, this is n minus k plus 1, right? So this will be 2 raised to power n minus k plus 2, and this is u of minus n plus k plus 1, right? So wherever n is there, I have replaced it by n minus k. Okay, so x of k I have written here by replacing n with k. Then your g of n minus k is this function, that is 2 raised to power n minus k plus 2, and this is u of minus n plus k plus 1, right? So this is what your what is it? This is nothing but your p of n. This is nothing but your p of n. Okay, so we got p of n expression, right? But what we are supposed to get? We are supposed to get p of 0, or that is p of n evaluated n equal to 0. So what I am doing is, if this is what is the general expression of p of n, if I ask you what is p of 0, then if I ask you what is p of 0, what you have to do is, you have to substitute n equal to 0 in the entire equations. If you do that, this is 2 raised to power k minus 1, this is u of minus k plus 2, and n if I am replacing it with 0, so this will be 2 raised to power minus k plus 2, and this is u of k plus 1, right? Because this n I am replacing with 0, so it will be 2 raised to minus k plus 2, and if I am replacing this n with 0, this will be u of k plus 1. So this is equivalent to summation k from minus infinite to plus infinite, 2 to the power k minus 1 minus k plus 2, right? So this and this together I can write 2 raised to power k minus 1 plus minus k plus 2, okay? And then this is multiplied with u of minus k plus 2 into u of k plus 1, right? So we can write like this. So this will be equivalent to This is 2 raised to power, k and minus k cancel, 2 minus 1 is 1. So this is 2 itself, and what we'll get for this? Okay, see one thing, u of minus k plus 2, if we plot this signal with respect to k, from what range to what it will exist? From what range to what it will exist? So if you see, what is u of minus k, okay? So u of minus k, this exists from k from minus infinite to 0. If I ask you what is u of minus k plus 2, then this will exist from minus infinite to plus 2, right? So u of minus k plus 2 means it will exist from minus infinite to 2. Similarly, if I ask you where this u of k exists, u of k exists from 0 to infinite. Then if I ask you what is the range of k for which u of k plus 1 exists, so this will exist from minus 1 till infinite, minus 1 till infinite. So what is the common range of this product, or what is the common range of this and this? Because when we are multiplying two signal, the common sections are okay is what interests to us, because whenever they are non-overlapping, product will be 0. So basically, if you try to see in graphical form, u of minus k plus 2, okay, it will be looking something like this. This is minus 2, this is minus 1, this is 0, this is the k axis, right? So this is 0, this is 1, this is 2, and this is minus 1, this is minus 2, and so on and so forth. And these all points are 0. So this is the waveform of u of minus k plus 2. If I ask you what is the waveform of u of k plus 1, okay, u of k will be left shifted by 1. So this is k equal to 0, 1, 2, like this, and this is minus 1. And these all points, so they are becoming 0. That is minus 2, minus 3, minus 4, these are 0. So what is this? This is u of k plus 1. So I am showing you u of minus k plus 2 separately. I am showing you u of k plus 1 separately. If I ask you to multiply these two signal, what you will get? If I ask you to multiply this signal, you can see anything left to minus 2. So this signal amplitude is 1 and this signal amplitude is 0. If I am asking you what is the product of these two, okay, beyond minus 2, what will happen? So 1, these all are 1, 1, 1. But here beyond minus 2, everything is 0, 0, 0. So up to minus 2, so definitely this answer will be 0. So if I say this point is minus 2, this point is minus 3, so these all answers are 0. Because you can see towards left hand side, okay, this signal is existing up to minus 1. At minus 2 afterwards towards minus infinity, these amplitudes are all zeros and these amplitudes are all ones. But 0 into 1 is always 0. So between minus 2 to minus infinite, the product is 0. Similarly, if I observe the right hand side, you can see, okay, up to 2 this is fine. But if I am going up to 2, that is if I ask you 3, 4, 5, what is being happening? So this amplitude is 0, but this is always 1. So beyond 3, 4, etc. So these amplitudes are always 0. So this is 3, 4, these all are always 0. Because this is 0, but this is 1. 0 into 1 is 1. Then what is the common range we are left with? We are left with the common range of minus 1, 0, 1, 2. You can see there are only 4 samples where both of the amplitudes are 1. So if I ask you to, plot this, so this is your minus 1, this is your 0, this is your 1, and this is your 2. Okay, so this is 1. What is this? This signal is u of minus k plus 2 multiplied with u of k plus 1. Actually, so if you have good basics, so no need to, do all this drama directly. By observing this, you can write it. Now, what is the implication of doing all these things? The thing is, the range of k, which was from minus infinite to plus infinite, we can write this range k from minus 1 to 2, and this is 2 and this is 1, right? This is multiplied by 1. Because this function takes value 1 only in the range of minus 1 to 2. And anything other than this range minus 1 to 2, this will be 0. So, if I are taking any k values, which is, like left of minus 1 and right of 2, this will be 0. Okay, and you will get this function value as this itself when if you take the range of k from minus 1 to 2. In other words, between minus 1 to 2, with this function we are multiplying 1, and anything other than minus 1 to 2 we are multiplying this function with 0. So this summation is equivalent to this one, right? So the limit which was from minus infinite to infinite, now this become minus 1 to 2. So how many values this k is taking? K is taking 4 value, right? K is taking 4 samples. So basically if you add 2 4 times, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, so that is definitely equals to 8. So the answer of this question is 8. Okay. So there is something called Plancher's theorem. In DTFT there is one more theorem called Plancher's theorems. So we can also solve this problem by that approach. So it will again simplify these things. Even this is also, like I haven't taken any long-term or like a very lengthy solutions. But yes, I am explaining each and every steps I am writing. So that's why I am taking around 10-15 minutes of time. But if you solve in proper flow, if you have good basics, so by observing this one, so somebody should have written this particular equation directly. And if you write this particular equation directly, then you can jump into this particular equations. And there you can easily get the answer will be 8. So for a good student who is having very good basics of convolutions and DTFT concepts, so hardly it will be 1 minute job. Okay, to avoid the mistakes and all, I have just gone through step by step solutions. So let me summarize once again what I did. So this is what they have asked to find. I have assumed this product is p raised to power j omega. Then by referring the standard DTFT, inverse DTFT relations, by comparing this with this one, we have figured out if I am making n equal to 0, so this integral will be identical to this integral, right? So basically this function which I have to find, this integration, this is equivalent to p of 0. So if this is p of 0, then I have started to find what is p of n. So I have taken this is p raised to power j omega, then the corresponding time domain function I have written. So this is what your p of n we got. Okay, and then by getting the expression of p of n, I am substituting n equal to 0. Okay, then I am getting this term, and this term is deciding what is the range of the summations. So it is taking only 4 values, and by simplifying this, the answer what you are getting is 8. So 8 is the right answer for this particular question. This is a one more question asked in gate 21 of electronics. This is from signal subjects and related to the DFT concept. The given question is, consider two 16-point sequences xn and hn. Let the linear convolution of xn and hn denoted by yn, while zn denotes the 16-point inverse discrete Fourier transform of product of 16-point DFT of x of n and h of n. The values of k for which zk equals to yk is r. The options are k from 0 to 15, k equal to 0, k equal to 15, and k equal to 0 and k equal to 15. So let me actually summarize what is given in the questions. So what is being given is, there are two sequences or two discrete time signal x of n and h of n. Each of them contains 16 number of samples. Xn contains 16 samples and Hn contains 16 samples. And one more signal is defined y of n, where y of n is the linear convolution or the normal convolutions of both of the sequence x of n and h of n. And there is one more signal called Zn, which is IDFT of the DFT of x of n and h of n. So the DFT of x of n is, let's say, x of k. DFT of h of n is, let's say, h of k. So as per the questions, Z of n indicates IDFT of x of k multiplied by h of k. So we need a conditions for what value of k, yk equals to zk. Under what is that value on which these two signal samples are same. So you know very well, in DFT you have learned the property. So if xn having DFT x of k, h of n having DFT h of k, then if you do circular convolutions x of n circularly convolve with h of n, then we get it is x of k multiplied by h of k. In other words, what is the IDFT of x of k into h of k? So this is nothing but your x of n circularly convolve with h of n. So the conclusion is, we have two sequences y of n, which is linear convolution of h of x of n and h of n, and we have one more sequence z of n, which is circular convolution of x of n and h of n. So this information is indirectly given in the question. So we need to find for what value of n or for what value of k the samples will be same for y of n and z of n. So how do you do this? Now instead of dealing with 16 samples, so let me show you a simple examples. There you can easily figure it out. Suppose you take x of n, let's say it is 1, 2, and you take h of n, let's say it is 3, 4. Okay. Now if I ask you to perform the linear convolution or the circular convolution, what is going to happen? So if I say y of n, which is having x of n convolution to h of n, so first thing it will contain 2 plus 2, 4 minus 1, 3 number of samples. And if I say to evaluate z of n, which is x of n, circularly convolve h of n, so this will contain 2 number of samples. Okay, so how to perform this? So you perform the linear convolutions. So I am just going by these multiplication methods. You may have your own methods to compute the convolutions. 3 into 1 is 3, 3 into 2 is 6, 4 into 1 is 4, 4 into 2 is 8. So you are getting this is 3 and you are getting this is 10 and you are getting this is 8. So your y of n sequence, okay, so this is coming 3, 10 and 8. And what is z of n? Now to evaluate the circular convolutions, so the number of sample what will contain is 2. So the first 2 sample, okay, like this, and which is remaining 8, so you just add it here. So this is 3 plus 8 is 11 and this is 10. So this is the answer of the circular convolution. If I ask you what is this is 11 and this is 10. So this is your z of n. If you see, the sample 10 is remaining same. So if you are not convinced with these two cases, so let's go with which contain 4 number of samples. So for examples, if I take x of n, let's say it is 1, 2, minus 1 and 3, and if I am taking my h of n, which is let's say 3, minus 1, 2 and 1. So this way if I do it, now let us see what's going to happen if you are finding the linear convolutions and the circular convolutions. 3 into 1 is 3, 6, minus 3 9, 2 into 1 is 2, 4, minus 2, 6. Okay, sorry. So I did with 3 first, right? 3 is 6, minus 3, 9, then with minus 1, right? So it is minus 1, minus 2, plus 1, then minus 3, then with 2. So 2, 4, minus 2, 6, then with 1, you get 1, 2, minus 1 and 3. So this is 3, this is 5, this is minus 3, this is 15, this is minus 3, this is 5 and this is 3. So in this case, so how many sample y of n will contain? Okay, 4 plus 4 minus 1, 4 plus 4 minus 1 is 7 number of samples. So as expected, we can see there are 7 number of samples. And z of n will contain maximum of these 2 number of samples. So this is containing 4, this is containing 4. So maximum of 4 and 4 is 4 number of samples. So 4 number of sample means, so the initial 4 I am keeping as it is, so I am putting a line here. So the remaining 3 you just add it here. So it is minus 3 and this is 5 and this is 3. If you add this, you get 0, you get 10, you get 0 and you get 15. So basically this is the answer of y of n and this is the answer of z of n. Now again if you compare the sequence y of n and z of n, this 15 is remaining same. You can again take example of 3 samples, 5 samples, any number of samples. You can always see the last sample, it will be always same. In other words, what I want to conclude in this case is, if xn is containing 4 number of sample, hn is containing 4 number of samples, then the fourth sample will be same in case of y of n and z of n. So if xn is containing 2 number of samples, hn is containing 2 number of samples, then the second samples will be same in the linear convolutions as well as in the circular convolutions. So obviously, so if I am going with 4 number of samples, if x of n, h of n contain 4 number of samples, then the fourth sample of y of n and fourth sample of z of n. So I mean to say fourth sample of y of n is equals to fourth sample of what is that, z of n. But if I say it is fourth sample, but if you take this is like n equal to 0, this is, if I ask you for what value of n, I am saying it is fourth sample. This is the first sample, second sample, third sample, fourth sample. But generally while writing notation, this is considered to be 0th sample. For example, if I say what is this 10, this is second sample, but in terms of n value it is the n equal to 0 and n equal to 1. Similarly, obviously we are saying it is 4th samples, but what value of n if I say it is actually n equal to 3, n equal to 0, n equals to 1, n equal to n equal to 3. So similarly, if you are dealing with, instead of 2 and 4, if you are dealing with 16 number of samples, then the 16th sample of y of n and z of n will be same, but the 16th sample corresponds to n equals to 15 because the starting point will be n equal to 0. So naturally the answer of this question is k equals to 15 or n equals to 15. So this is based on these simple observations. So it is quite impractical to take example of 60 number of samples. It will have 31 is this board will be full, and right. So from this we can easily conclude. So the point is, at what case linear convolution and this circular convolution will be equal, basically what sample it will be equal. So that's what the purpose of the questions, and the answer should be k equals to 15 for this.